Good evening, welcome to the Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories. Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon directs DOTr officials to submit their courtesy resignations, but he was quick to explain that that's just routine in any leadership transition.
Senate President Cheese Escudero says the upper chamber can wrap up the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte in only 3 months. But he says it again, don't expect the proceedings to start anytime soon.
And several groups defy the working holiday and turn up in anniversary celebrations for the EDSA People Power, one of the world's brightest spots back in 1986.
After stopping the full implementation of cashless toll in expressways, new Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon is carrying out a purge in the agency.
All incumbent officials of the department have until tomorrow, February 26, to submit their courtesy resignations. Now, Dizon was quick to say, though, that this is what any newly appointed leaders do.
Also today, Dizon made good on his promise to experience first-hand commuting via EDSA's bus rapid transit system. Gerard De La Peña with tonight's big story.
Right after the turnover ceremonies in the Department of Transportation on Monday, new Secretary Vince Dizon headed to the EDSA carousel. His objective? Experience first-hand commuting via the bus rapid transit system. Along with the DOTr's team of engineers, Dizon took the bus from Ortigas to Monumento. And since it's already 5 p.m., rush hour, the group wasn't able to get a seat.
I wouldn't say ito horrible, especially kapag nakasakay ka na sa bus. Kapag, syempre, ano pa rin, no? Nakatayo. Pero, I mean, kahit naman sa abroad, pagkapuno, nakatayo ka naman. No? So, pero, dun ko nakita ang genius ng busway.
But Dizon did not notice the long lines and how MRT and bus passengers pushing their way through each other at the Ortigas station. The new DOTr chief also took note of the 1 to 3 minute waiting time at each station for buses waiting for passengers, specifically at the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange and Monumento station. Off the top of his head, Dizon suggests signages and stanchions for every station so commuters won't be confused if they're taking the train or bus. Timers will likewise be fixed and enforcers posted to ensure buses move in and out of every station quickly. Secretary Dizon's ideas kept flowing. He wants all elevators in every station up and running and separate access lanes for bus riders constructed. All these for commuters using the EDSA busway that are now at more than 63 million per last year's figures.
These engineers just have to do the final designs and specifications and the engineering plans. But hopefully that will be finished in a month or two so that by May, we can already start the bidding process for the construction.
Next week, Dizon takes his commuting challenge to the MRT3. Back in the office, Dizon marks his official day as the DOTr head with the memorandum, asking incumbent undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, and directors of his new agency's central office to submit unqualified resignations by Wednesday, February 26. His explanation?
It's just a simple gesture, no, of goodwill and good faith to the newly appointed leadership, which will allow the newly appointed leadership to find the best personnel to do the jobs.
Outside DOTr's office in San Juan, members of Piston hope to have an audience with Dizon as the transport group continues to protest the PUV modernization program. Dizon has made it clear that this program stays but promised to look into details to try to iron out more contentious issues. So far, PUV operators and drivers are satisfied with this answer.
I am not against modernization. No one is against modernization. We all want to modernize our transport system. But there are implications and there are factors that everybody needs to consider in the transition from the current PUV system to a modern system. And that is something that needs to be based on accurate information.
Positibo po yun. Pero may maximum at minimum kaming demands na dapat tingnan. Kung makuha man namin yung minimums, payagan kami makarehistro, bahagi yan. Kung payagan kami makapag-renew ng prangkisa, bahagi yan. Tatanggapin namin.
Meantime, toll operators were not as warm with Dizon's first order to suspend the implementation of fully cashless transactions in expressways. NLEX Corporation said, since the policy was first introduced in 2020, Almost all toll plazas are now capable of automatic license plate recognition. In fact, they said they are investing an additional 1.4 billion pesos to upgrade the rest. In short, they hope that the government can sustain the rollout of these improvements. For its part, San Miguel Corporation insisted that the full uniform implementation of cashless toll is needed to fully implement interoperability or the seamless integration of EasyTrip and AutoSweep. But Dizon is standing by his belief that this scheme is anti-poor.
If you can tell me that there is a way to ensure that a working person who has barely enough budget per month for gasoline or to feed his family or to pay for tuition, na nakalimutan niya, halimbawa, mag-load sa EasyTrip o sa AutoSweep, at dahil doon, either zero o negative balance siya, at siya ngayon hindi niya alam kung paano siya lulusot ng NLEX at mapeperwisyo siya, pag-usapan muna natin yung mga issue na yun siguro.
For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
Talking about EDSA, still on the transport front, big questions remain, of course, over when the big EDSA rehabilitation project is finally happening. And for some answers, let me bring in Engineer Loretta Malaluan, Director of DPWH NCR. She joins us on the line. Yusek Malaluan, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. I'm Director Loretta Malaluan.
Director Loretta, I apologize.
Not Yusek. Yeah.
She promoted you
Ako na yung nag-promote. Anyways, we brought you in tonight because si DPWH Secretary Manny Bonoan was interviewed by our sister program with DJ Chacha and Ted Filon yesterday, and he said that yung EDSA bus rehabilitation program should start between mid to late March. And the question there for us is, you know, it's already March at the end of this week, and how come there's no timetable set yet? How come it's not been planned out? I wonder if you could tell us more about what's going on behind the scenes.
Actually po, yes, we will rehabilitate EDSA. We will have 15 segments along southbound and 1 segment sa northbound po. We are still coordinating with the utilities, like the water lines and yung mga telco po, and yung Meralco. With regards po dun sa utilities, that will be affected by our project. And nag-walk through po sila the other day para ma-identify po nila saan-saan nakalocate talaga yung kanilang mga utilities, and also they provided us copies of their as-built plans. And tomorrow we will have a meeting with the DOTr with regards naman po sa busway. Kasi po tulad na nasabi ni Secretary Manny Bonoan, we will start po ang trabaho along the busway po, sa inner lane. Nung una po kasi nabanggit namin na we will start sa outer lane, pero dahil nga po ito po ay doon natin ilalagay yung drainage system po natin, kaya marami po maaapektuhan na mga utilities natin, kaya po mas together with the MMDA, we agreed na dito po sa bus lane mag-start while we will be coordinating with DOTr. May meeting po kami bukas.
So let me see if I got this right, Director. The EDSA rehab project will start in the inner lanes of the busway southbound.
Yes,
correct?
po.
So southbound inner lane
Yes, po,
busway.
correct.
Okay. Next question is, when will it start? Because as you can
Tulad po
imagine,
lang nasabi uli ni Secretary Bonoan, we are right now in the process of procurement, and hopefully we can start by mid of March yung kahit po yung isang segment muna sa northbound, then we will start po yung southbound as as soon as we finalize with the OTR and MDA yung ating traffic management plan.
Okay, siguro nagkaroon tayo ng konting, siguro misunderstanding lang, no, Director Malaluan. Kasi, syempre, para sa inyo, ba, nag-start na yung process behind the scenes, yung paperwork, yung coordination. Pero for the riding public and the driving public, kailan po natin maaasahan, no, makita yung pagkukumpuni mismo, kailan ito magsisimula? In terms of, kahit na loose timeline, we understand na mahirap, ma-foresee, actual start dates and mag-promise, pero meron ba tayong rough timeline? So, habang nagsisimula na yung mga paperwork, procurement, etc., tsaka coordination, when can we start seeing talaga, no, na haharangan na yung mga lanes at maapektuhan yung traffic?
Ano po kasi, right now, ang timeline po namin dito sa rehab ng southbound is before the end of this year, matapos po natin. Kaya, we will start on this March, before the end of March.
So before the end of March, we'll actually see, no, na may mga construction na sa southbound lane ng EDSA, sa may inner lanes. Okay.
And, Director, I wanted to ask yung completion naman nitong EDSA rehabilitation. Secretary Bonoan did say he's confident matatapos daw po to in 1 year. I understand also your target is to finish this before the ASEAN Summit in 2026. So are we looking at March 2027 or 2026 rather as your target?
Yes po, we already requested MMDA to allow us to work 24/7 po in order to complete the EDSA rehab in time for the ASEAN 2026.
Director, when President Bongbong Marcos gave the mandate to Secretary Bonoan to rehabilitate the entire length of EDSA, there was a budget mentioned of 7 billion pesos. Is that budget, has that materialized? Is it there? Kumbaga, meron ba tayong pera pang fund nitong rehab?
Yes po, yung sinasabing 7 billion po is funded na under our 2025 TAA. Ito po yung southbound. Then we already proposed the rehabilitation of the northbound sa calendar year sa fiscal year 2026.
Okay, so just to clarify, yung 7 billion pesos, that's just for southbound. Kumbaga half pa lang yon ng EDSA.
Yes po.
Okay, and then you mentioned also, no, yung drainage nga will be an important component, and it's actually one of the challenges that you guys are facing in engineering right now. Can you clarify for us, kasi nung nagkakaroon ng sunod-sunod na baha, no, last year, ang understanding namin, and based on our interview rin with Secretary Manny, ang sabi niya, this is now under the MMDA's mandate, right? Can you clarify if drainage and flood control, are these two interchangeable, or is drainage a separate thing from flood control?
Bali, ang drainage po, ito po yung along our national roads po and yung mga local roads na ito po yung tinatakbuhan ng ating mga tubig. While ang flood control po yung ating mga dito sa along our river or ano po, yun po yung mga sinasabi natin, flood control.
So pagdating sa drainage, DPWH pa rin yun?
Opo, kami pa rin po along national roads, pero doon po sa mga local roads ay responsibility po ng ating mga local government unit.
Director, you did mention you are in the process of procurement right now. I wanted to ask about the quality of materials that will be used sa pag-rehab nga ng EDSA. Secretary Bonoan did say the road will be repaved with better asphalt. Tama po ba yun? And can you tell us more about this, Director?
We will have a new concrete road dahil po tatanggalin natin yung dati nating concrete. Magiging around 13.8 na po ang thickness. This will be reinforced concrete, and then we will provide asphalt with high modulus anti-rotting and cracking modifier po. And dun po sa ating drainage, para nga po medyo mabilis yung ating pagtatrabaho sa drainage, gagamit po tayo ng high density polyethylene pipe po, yung HDPE pipe na tinatawag natin, na about 2 meters ang diameter po. Medyo malaki na po.
Okay, ito na ang grand question. Anong pong mangyayari sa lagay ng trapiko engineer? I understand na baka po kayo yung engineering part of this discussion, pero I'm sure na pag-uusapan ninyo kung saan po i-divert ang mga kotse.
First of all, let's break it down into stages. So sabi niyo po, 15 segments. It will be divided into 15 segments. You're starting with the inner lanes of the busway southbound. So yung first segment, ano po yun? What does it cover?
Bali, ang first segment po will cover Monumento to Balintawak Interchange. And ang 15th segment will end at Park Avenue to Rojas Boulevard. Bali po mula Monumento hanggang Pasay po, Rojas Boulevard.
Okay, and paano po yun? How will it work? You will close down one segment at a time, or you'll do 2, or you'll do 3?
Opo.
One segment at a time.
We will do a lane at a time po. Ibig sabihin, the inner lane most, which is the busway po, we will start with the busway, pero may mga exempted po muna tayo na i-gagap namin. Ito po yung mga bus station na kung saan po ay makakapasok pa rin ang buses doon at least one bus doon sa bus station para po makasakay yung ating mga sumasakay po ng bus. Pero ang linya po nila ay doon sa second lane habang sarado po yung bus lane, pero magiging shared lane ito. Ibig sabihin, ayun nga po ang pag-uusapan namin with the DOTr tomorrow.
Okay. Nako, it sounds like it's going to
cause... Yun ang proposal namin.
Yeah, it sounds like that's going to cause quite a lot of confusion, because even now with the dedicated bus lane, we're already, there are already instances of vehicles plying that route kahit na they're not allowed. So, how would it work, itong sharing scheme? And also, how are you planning to communicate that?
Magkakaroon po tayo ng mga advisory, and even po sa mga social media natin, meron po kasi kaming Facebook, meron kaming yung iba't ibang social media wherein we can advise them nung traffic routes natin. And also, and even MMDA po will be announcing po ang lahat ng ito. Magkakaroon po tayo ng mga advisory, signages, and ng mga rerouting po natin.
Balikan ko lang very quickly, no, engineer, yung sinasabi yung segment 1, which is the bus lane. When you say you're gonna close down the entire lane, talagang mula Balintawak hanggang dulo? Monumento to Balintawak lang? Yeah. Oh, but then she also mentioned something towards the end part. So, short chunks at a time.
Bali po, there are 15 segments po. Sabay, ang talagang namin, this will be sabay-sabay na isasara. Kaya po 24/7, and per lane po, ang estimated time of completion will be around 1 month and 3 weeks.
Okay, so bale,
for us to complete the whole lanes before the end of the year.
Okay, so talagang end-to-end to ng EDSA mula Monumento hanggang ano ba yung dulo? Magallanes o Rojas
Boulevard.
Sa Rojas Boulevard po. Rojas Boulevard.
Okay.
So that's clear. So all 15 segments will be closed at the same time. Tapos estimate work per segment is 1 month, 3 weeks, correct?
Per lane.
Yes po.
Okay.
Per lane po. Per lane.
So of course, we're all worried because already EDSA is extremely congested, and we experience the horrendous traffic every day. Pero and I guess I understand this is more targeted for excuse me, the MMDA, I guess. Pero since you're part of the conversations, I wonder if you can tell us what kind of discussions you're having around alternate routes. So, how closely are you looking at alternate routes? And lahat ba ng segments meron?
Yes po. We will be having a meeting with the OTR, and actually we have already had a meeting with MMDA. Agreed naman po sila dun sa methodology namin, but we will still finalize the traffic management po plans. Usually po magkakaroon tayo ng proposals. Pero during construction po, kung nakita natin na it would greatly affect the traffic, magkakaroon po tayo ng mga adjustment.
Okay. After tomorrow, after your meeting with DOTr Director, you think you would be able to announce to the public already? I mean, of course, this is a major disruption to one of the largest thoroughfares in the country. So I wonder, kailan kaya makapaglabas ng announcement?
We will finalize it with the OTR. Then MMDA, the OTR, and us will announce and advise all the concerned stakeholders.
Okay, but you don't have a date yet? No estimate yet of kailan kaya?
Baka po next week we can announce na po.
Okay. We look forward to that. We'll continue covering this story, of course. I'll have to leave that there for now. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That was Engineer Loretta Malaluan, Director of DPWH NCR.
In other news, Senate President Cheese Escudero has promised to turn down the vice presidency should Sara Duterte be ousted by impeachment. He has said before that he's not interested, but this is the first time that he's outright and on record said that he will reject it. Escudero also challenged members of the lower house to do the same.
Hindi naman din siguro dapat konsiderahin yan nung mga pumirma at nung mga nagsusulong nito. Dahil baka mamaya masabihan sila na ito lamang pala ang interes at gusto nila kaya nila ginawa ito. So prudence is the better part of valor. Delicadeza is rarely seen in government. But I think we can always go back to it and rekindle and refresh it in the minds of our people. Ngayon pa lang sinasabi ko na, hindi ako interesado, tatanggihan ko yun kung inalok man sa akin yun. Hindi tama at hindi dapat ginagawa yun.
Escudero also insisted that the Constitution is clear on the procedure, that the removal of the Vice President does not mean that the Senate President automatically succeeds. It only states that the President has to choose someone aged 40 and up from either House of Congress to fill the vacancy. In a wide-ranging interview in Sorsogon today, Escudero also laid down what he says are the only 5 conditions that they are allowed to call a special session. First, if all the majority and minority leaders of the Senate and the House Speaker agree to it. Second, if there is an urgent piece of legislation, a category which Escudero believes impeachment does not fall under. And 3, if the President or Vice President dies, gets impeached, or becomes incapacitated to fulfill their duties and responsibilities and a replacement is needed. 4th, if there is a declaration of martial law or state of war. Or 5, when proclaiming the winning President and Vice President. The Senate President Escudero rejected once more the idea of calling a special session while Congress is in recess.
Anong gusto niyo, magbulungan tayo? Hoy, kunwari may urgent legislation, papa-request ako. Pero pag-usapan natin talaga impeachment eh. Yung palang mali na eh. Hindi ba? Hindi binanggit ang impeachment at iisa lamang ang pagkakataong pwede ako humiling ng special session. Wala rin kinalaman ang impeachment doon. At alam ni Senator Pimentel yan, kaya caucus ang hiningi niya.
As for the timeline, Escudero says as soon as the Senate starts pre-trial in June, still under the 19th Congress, they would be drafting impeachment rules and sending out summons. The trial proper, he says, will definitely start by July when the 20th Congress opens. And the impeachment court should be able to finish this within 3 months or by October.
Dahil dyan, pamati ko dahil masobra sa 3 bulan, 2 bulan ang trial. So antes kami mag-recess by October of 2025, tapos na tabi ini mapagbobotohan na tabi.
Well, the Supreme Court, for one, had quite a busy day during their unbanked session today. Among the matters they acted on is Vice President Sara Duterte's petition for a temporary restraining order on her impeachment. The SC ordered the House of Representatives, its Secretary General Regina Lay, and the Senate to comment on this within a non-extendable period of 10 days from notice. Attorney Sheila Sison of Fortune Narvasa Salazar Law Firm, which is advising the Vice President on the matter, said in a statement that they welcome this development. Sison said they have complete faith that the Supreme Court will thoroughly address the legal issues they submitted in the petition. Aside from the impeachment, the Supreme Court also held its second oral arguments on the transfer of PhilHealth's unused funds worth 89.9 billion pesos to the National Treasury. Associate Justice Ami Lazaro Javier noted COA's observation that the state insurer's financial statements in 2021 had misstated liabilities and overstated assets. Taking these into account, it appears the negative equity of PhilHealth now amounts to more than 816 billion, leaving questions as to whether or not PhilHealth is already bankrupt and can still sustain operations.
I can simply say, Your Honor, that the corporation has that capacity to continue its operation, Your Honor. Given that the corporation, Your Honor, has investment portfolio, Your Honor, enough to cover the requirements of the corporation in terms of benefit payment, Your Honor.
Your liabilities are far more than, even if you double up your assets, they're not enough to pay off your liabilities.
As all of this is happening, health reform advocate Dr. Tony Liachon lodged a petition at the Supreme Court to question the zero subsidy for PhilHealth. He called this a blatant violation of the provision in the sin tax law, which mandates that 80% of revenues from the taxes of tobacco and sugar-sweetened beverages have to be allotted to PhilHealth to fund the Universal Health Care Act.
First time yan in Philippine history na hindi binigyan importansya ng Pangulo ng Pilipinas at ng Senate President at ng Lower House ang kalusugan ng bawat Pilipino. Pinaparusahan nila ang leadership and governance kaya natanggal si Emmanuel EDSA. Pero ang pinarusahan, taong bayan. Ang mangyayari, ang mag-shoulder ng burden ay yung direct contributors, yung binabawasan ng buwan-buwan ng 500 pesos, so almost 6,000 a year, na kakarga para sa indirect contributors. Na yun dapat ang inibinibigay.
We're going to take a quick break, but coming up next, Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte takes another dig at the Marcoses in his EDSA People Power anniversary message. We hear what Palace Press Officer Claire Castro has to say to that when she joins us in a bit here on The Big Story. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News.
Let's not forget that today, February 25, is the 39th anniversary of the EDSA People Power Revolution. Despite being downgraded to a special working day, several groups and schools took time to commemorate the peaceful revolt that eventually toppled the 20-year dictatorship of former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. Here in Metro Manila, a wreath-laying ceremony was held at the People Power Monument along EDSA, led by the Quezon City LGU and the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, or NHCP. Survivors of martial law, as well as various student leaders and organizations, joined this year's commemoration. There were those who were dismayed by the administration's decision not to declare today a holiday. The NHCP says it will continue programs to celebrate the EDSA People's Revolt, while the Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission says that it hopes that on the 40th anniversary next year, the President commemorates it as in the past.
He may even again repeat what his father did, because his first step was to forget this.
Hindi pa tapos ang ating laban. Tuloy-tuloy nating ipapaalala sa mga kabataan na meron tayong walang katapusang pagbabago ng lipunan natin. So ito ay isang paraan na sariwain yung ating laban, baguhin ang ating lipunan, laban sa korupsyon.
Students of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines staged a walkout today after school administration refused to suspend classes. Students who joined the walkout marched across or around the campus, calling for accountability in governance and an end to corruption. Meanwhile, students from Bulacan State University and UP Tacloban also held rallies today to commemorate EDSA and honor the victims of the Marcos dictatorship. More than 11,000 victims of human rights violations under Marcos Sr. have received indemnification or compensation, which will be taken from Marcos's secret Swiss bank accounts, which by some estimates were worth 10 billion pesos. But the Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission also pointed out that this represents only about 14% of the total number of cases filed for reparations, with the vast majority unable to proceed due to a lack of evidence.
Those who actually filed were 75,749. So 85% were not recognized by the state. That is due to lack of evidence, substantive proof. It's so hard to dig up evidence and witnesses from 40 years ago. Nevertheless, the Human Rights Victims Claims Court ended its work in 2018. All of the records, more than 2 million individual documents, are now with us.
The palace responds to all criticism on the non-declaration of a holiday for the anniversary of the EDSA People Power Revolution. Palace press officer Claire Castro had to defend the president again from criticism that Marcos Jr. is trying to diminish the historical significance of the revolution. Castro maintains there is no such effort by the present administration. President Marcos Jr. has kept declaring February 25 a non-working holiday for the second consecutive year now.
Let's dive into this further, get to know more about the new Palace spokesperson. Joining us tonight is Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro. Welcome to the Big Story, Yusek Castro.
Yes, good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Thanks for being with us. I know it's been a very busy day for you attending to media inquiries. First off, for the people that don't know you, I understand you've just assumed position yesterday, in fact, and you're officially an undersecretary as well as Palace Press Officer. What does that entail? Are you now officially the spokesperson for the president?
No, the president will be speaking for himself. He will have no spokesperson. But my mandate is just to explain, to expound whatever will be and entertain any question regarding the directives or pronouncements that the media people have not asked to the president.
Yusek. Or what do we call you? What do you prefer to be called? Yusek. We'll call you Yusek Claire. Yusek Claire.
Okay, attorney.
Attorney. Nasanay po ako
Attorney maybe sounds sweeter than Yusek.
No, because I used to listen to your show on the radio. So nasanay po ako dun sa normal name. Attorney Claire.
Thanks, Shawn.
Right. So, so there will be no Palace official presidential spokesperson. So, but will you be conducting daily press briefings? And will the president still be conducting what he promised the last month, I believe, that he will do a personal press briefing, I think, on a monthly basis? So, tuloy yun.
Yes, tuloy po yun. Every month, there will be a press conference with the president. Doon, he will discuss maybe his projects, his programs. And doon po, madidinig po ng taong bayan ang mga pronouncements po ng ating Pangulo.
Well, Attorney Clara, tell us about your appointment. Did President Marcos speak to you directly? What was that conversation like? And was it a clear yes for you?
Yes, I was invited to be part of PCO. And maybe for just 4 times I thought about it. I pondered about it. And I accepted after the 4th time that I was asked to be part of the team. And yes, we talk about, especially to curtail or at least to eradicate, not totally eradicate, but at least lessen the fake news. And so that we can also bring the statements about the projects and the programs of the government for the people. So ang dapat po talaga ang makaalam po ng proyekto at mga tulong na maaaring makuha ay patutungo at makakarating po sa taong bayan. The problem now, ladies, these programs of the government have not been given much thought about by the people. Why? Because more fake news had been in the headlines. So that's the problem. Natatabunan kasi yung magagandang balita na sana sa taong bayan, and that we will be working on that so that the people will know what they can get from the government.
Wait, what stopped you the first 3 times?
What changed in the fourth time, attorney?
I'm just an ordinary, I am not into politics. I do not want to be, as much as possible, to be a politician. But as of now, I will never consider myself as a politician, but a public servant.
Okay, fair enough. Let's get into some of the issues. Let me have you react to something that Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte put out today. As you know, the hot topic today is the EDSA People Power commemoration, and he put out a statement today saying, martial law declared, if I could just have that graphic as well, martial law declared by Ferdinand Marcos Sr. in 1972 left a dark legacy. Countless lives were lost, freedoms were stripped away, and powers concentrated in the hands of a few. But also, it is a reminder that we must remain united against any oppression. And people power was more than just a revolution. It was a testament to the collective strength of the Filipino people in demanding truth, justice, and accountability. The one we're flashing right now is the condensed version. And there's also a paragraph that said, as we remember those who suffered and fought for our liberties, we must remain vigilant, especially now when the threat of authoritarian rule once again looms over our nation. So I guess when I say please react to that, I'm having you react to that last line about authoritarian rule.
Yes. My reaction first, it's not nice writing. I don't know who's the writer, but he has a good writer. But anyway, my reaction, as I've heard a while ago, there's a news about the 85% of the alleged victims of the alleged Marcos dictatorship. There's lack of evidence. So there was no proof whatsoever as of now about this 85% of the alleged victims. Well, with regard to the darkest legacy or darkest times, I hope the Mayor Baste Duterte should not forget what happened for the past 6 years under the Duterte administration. He should look back what happened and how this EJK became a household and tagline name during his time. As of now, the victims have not yet been given justice. The case, the complaints are still before the ICC. We should not forget that. So before making such allegations against the president, my advice is just he should look back.
Would you
For the
know,
past
wait,
6
speaking
years.
of the ICC,
Wait, sorry. I need to correct you on the first item, which is that what the Human Rights Victims Memorial Commission said. They didn't say there was no evidence. They said it's difficult to dig up evidence because it has been 40 years. And of course, 40 years ago, we do not have the same technologies as we do now. So that's what he said. He didn't say there was no evidence. It's a difficulty in procuring evidence and witnesses.
I just heard lack of evidence, so I just used the word lack of evidence.
Right. Okay, but we needed to set that record straight.
with regard to the ICC, since you mentioned it, Yusek Claire, what is the palace's position now on the ICC? In the beginning of the administration, I understand it's only day 2 for you at work, but perhaps you have some insight. At the beginning of the administration, I'm sure you followed, no? Napaka-hardline pa ni President Marcos about whether we are with the ICC or not. He said vehemently no. We saw that stance softening through time, right? Until the pronouncement from the other secretaries like Boying Remulla, Secretary of Justice, are, it will depend. If Interpol asks for help, we can't say no. What is, at this moment in time, where do we stand with the ICC?
If we could still remember the pronouncements of the president way maybe 2 years ago or a year ago, he said that ICC has no jurisdiction over the Philippines. Okay? ICC has no jurisdiction now. Of course, that's a fact. But at the time that the alleged crimes committed, the EJ case committed by the former president, ICC has jurisdiction over it.
Right, we
So
understand that,
we
Attorney.
cannot say, we cannot change the decision of the Supreme Court about this declaration that, if I'm not mistaken, before all those acts committed prior to the withdrawal, ICC has the jurisdiction.
Right, we
So
understand
if
that.
I
That's
can
until-
remember, yeah.
That
Go
was
ahead.
until 2019, right? So 2016 to
Yes.
2019, we were still part. But I'm talking more about the stance of this administration when it comes to the ICC. What is the current stance of the Marcos administration now?
As of now, we will not, okay, there's a pronouncement that we will not block or prevent any witness from being interviewed by the ICC. And if ever the Interpol will come and ask for help and assistance, we cannot avoid that. So that's the pronouncement as of now. That's our stance.
When you say that your mandate is to bring to the front, to bring to the fore some of the bad news that's been overshadowed by, some of the good news that's been overshadowed by the bad news, what exactly are you talking about? Because, I mean, for us in the media, we do try hard to be balanced. And of course, whatever projects or initiatives that the Malacanang has rolled out, we make sure to cover it pretty well. But you also can't deny that there's a lot of political noise right now. It is very noisy precisely because of the word war between former President Duterte and President Marcos. So how do we get around that? And what other, what good news are you referring to?
We will just give you the details with the Secretary Jay about these projects that the government is are taking on and for the benefit or best interest of the people. We will just give you the list.
Okay. I was wondering also because, you know, as everyone has already reported, Yusek Claire, this is already, kumbaga, the fourth secretary that we have. So the fourth kind of like PCO administration in less than 3 years. Is there a change in mandate or does the new secretary and yourself, where do you want to steer the PCO to? Should we expect any changes in the manner of how the PCO conducts its usual business, or are things going to be the same, or is it a little bit of both?
I just wanted to add, Attorney, netizens have already been calling you very feisty, even savage in how you've been responding to different issues. I mean, is this the direction that the PCO is going to take?
Well, I answered that in other programs. I just told Ms. Karen Davila that this is just me. The palace did not tell me to do these things or act like this, but this is me. You know, ladies, I'm a trial lawyer. Maybe that's the reason why I'm kind of passionate in talking about facts and things. So we will just answer those things or those issues of national concerns. Maybe I will retain myself as is. I will be just natural. But definitely all my answers will be from the palace.
Well, Attorney, speaking of issues, of course, we have that impeachment complaint awaiting the Vice President. President Marcos already said that he will only call a special session if the Senate asks for it. Is that still the position of President Marcos?
Yes, as of now, he has not changed his mind on this. Because for me, it will not be... I said it will be an awkward position if the president himself will volunteer to call for special session to start the impeachment trial, considering that there are intrigues that the president is the one behind all of these impeachment issues. So it's not for the president to voluntarily call for the special session unless the Senate will ask him for that.
Okay, just going back to the direction of this new PCO under a new PCO Secretary, Jay Ruiz, and yourself, should we expect any changes? And is there a new mandate from the President? What can you tell us about the fourth iteration of the PCO under the Marcos administration?
according to Secretary J. Ruiz, we will be more proactive. We will be more visible. Maybe unlike before, you cannot hear answers if there are some issues. But now, we will be always ready to answer if it is necessary.
But when you say that you're going to be yourself, Yusek, to put it bluntly, you weren't hired to become an attack dog. Is that what you're saying? Because
yes, I will never be an attack dog. I will just answer the necessary issues that concerns the country, that concerns the government and the president.
Kasi yun nga po yung napansin about you, which is that you assume the position and right away you hit back at the other side. And also this plays to what I was saying before, that the word war between the two former presidents are heating up. Between them and their camps, right? It's heating up. So then if I were jaded about it, I would think, oh, baka naman Malacanang hired someone who's more, let's say, aggressive to be their spokesperson. So hindi naman ganun po nangyari.
Hindi, Miss Regine. It's like this. When we were introduced, it's supposed to be wala pang tanungan eh. But Miss Maricel initiated the question and answer. So I just have to answer. And what is the question? It's about Duterte saying that the president is gearing towards dictatorship or is into martial law. So I just have to answer that with legal basis, of course.
As well as the gold question. I think that's what Maset led with. She was indeed the first person to ask a question. And having said that, very, very last question for me, Yusek Claire. You know, media, we always try to chase the president. We always try to chase, you know, BBM, PBBM. So now can we chase you?
As always. I will always be ready for that. And available for you, ladies.
Fantastic. That's wonderful to hear, because we will be bothering you a lot, especially when it comes to deciphering what the president is trying to say. But for now, we'll leave that there. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Newly installed Palace Press Officer, Undersecretary Claire Castro.
All right, time for another quick break. Right after that, a major policy shift for the United States as it refuses to blame Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. 3 years and counting. The details when we return. Keep it here. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on The Big Story.
The Vatican says Pope Francis remains in critical condition but has shown slight improvement. The Holy See press office said that the pontiff rested well overnight and that his mild kidney insufficiency is not a cause for concern. A Vatican official also told Reuters that he is eating normally and moving around his hospital room. The Pope is now on his 11th night at the Policlinico Agostino Gemelli Hospital, his longest hospital stay in his nearly 12-year papacy. Meanwhile, at St. Peter's Square, both faithful and tourists are expressing worry, but also hope for the Pope's recovery.
In world news, in a dramatic shift under President Donald Trump, the U.S. has refused to blame Russia for the invasion. At the UN General Assembly, the U.S. voted against a resolution condemning Russia and abstained from its own after European nations amended it to name Russia as the aggressor. Trump is also negotiating directly with Russia, excluding Ukraine and European allies from the discussions. With the allies split, the UN Security Council in the end adopted a U.S. drafted resolution that took a neutral stance on the war. And for years, the context is that the UN General Assembly has always supported Ukraine's sovereignty. But now Trump's policy reversal is raising serious concerns among Washington's transatlantic allies.
And that takes us to tonight's big picture. 3 years after Russia's invasion, Ukrainians gathered for a memorial event at the Romanivka Bridge in Irpin, a site destroyed early in the war. Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February of 2022, leading to Europe's deadliest war since World War II. Ukraine initially pushed back, regaining territory in 2022, but last year's failed counteroffensive allowed Russia to regain the battlefield advantage. Now, the war's toll is staggering as Ukraine faces a massive rebuilding effort. The World Bank says the country needs over $500 billion to recover, which is 3 times its expected 2024 economic output. Damage to energy infrastructure alone has surged 70% in the past year. The United States is advocating for separate peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. But for now, the war continues, and so do the costs.
That was the big stunner overnight at the UN Security Council, with the U.S. voting with Russia against its longtime European allies. In fact, twice. First, it voted, sided with Russia in the votes. It rejected a European drafted resolution condemning Moscow's actions and supporting Ukraine's territorial sovereignty. And then the second time around, it drafted and then voted for a resolution which called for an end to the conflict but refused to criticize Russia for it. So twice the U.S. rejected it at the UN Security Council, and everybody was flabbergasted, wondering. I mean, coming into it, I feel like some states would have expected it, given Trump's previous pronouncements. Pero I think that no one at this point had expected it would be so drastic as this. Remember that the United States is a crucial part of NATO, the alliance.
I know there's no connection to Feb 25, but I was just thinking that after, Manila, Metro Manila as we know it, was really wrecked after World War II, and that was a problem, you know. We were not given money to rebuild. Because Manila was declared an open city, everything was just basically fodder for like bombs and whatnot. And we were never given money to rebuild, and I think that's partly one of the reasons why we're talking about like what's going to happen.
Begs the question of what will happen to Ukraine.
What will happen to Ukraine?
If you don't have money to keep fighting the war, and much less
and if there's nobody to blame, right? There's
Right.
nobody to make singil. Ganun lang yung kasimple.
3 years.
Like, where will we get that money? $500 billion.
3 years just like that, it passed. I don't know what happened the last 3 years, but I remember when it first started, nobody thought Vladimir Putin would actually annex Ukraine, right? Actually send troops into Ukraine. But the good news for us at the moment is at least when
The
it comes to
exemption.
Trump policy, yes, the Philippines has been granted an exemption on the global foreign aid freeze to the tune of $336 million for military aid, specifically to modernize the armed forces of the Philippines.
And of course, Ukraine got a much smaller amount than
21 million only.
Yes,
My
$21 million.
goodness.
I was like, is this a typo? No, it wasn't.
No, they really were trying to send a message now. Okay,
But
the
Taiwan
US is
also got more than the Philippines.
much more,
800 plus
870 million. So that's,
Sends a message.
sends a very strong message as to what the Trump policy when it comes to foreign affairs is headed.
Right. Well, we will be here to, along with everybody else, to watch things unfold and talk about it. But for tonight, that's it for the 3 of us here.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.